Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to COASTER-net Update. We've got some news out of Waterloo, Iowa this evening. Actually thought we had some much more exciting breaking news last week out of the Lost Island Water Park in Waterloo, Iowa. I'm sure many of you have never heard of this place until last week. It's a small little water park, which is not too far away from Adventureland, which is in Altoona near Des Moines. This is north of Cedar Rapids. We got word late last week that the Lost Island Water Park acquired the former Kanonen roller coaster, the intimate accelerator coaster from Liseberg in Sweden, which was removed for the addition of their B&M dive coaster. And there was speculation, and even some outlets had said that had reported that the ride would open at Lost Island in 2019. Well, the park has now reportedly confirmed via comments on an article that was posted that they have acquired the ride but have no current plans to construct or open the ride at the water park. So, kind of pumping the brakes there on that story that we might be seeing Kanonen opening up in the Midwest. And this is a ride that you and I have followed for a couple years here now, speculating that it might go to like a Worlds of Fun or a Dorney Park. And then we had heard rumors back over the winter that it had been acquired by a Midwestern park that did not have any roller coasters. Well, apparently we found out what park that was, being the Lost Island
Apparently they will continue having no roller coasters.
Well, and apparently will continue to be as such because they're saying that they have no plans to construct it. Personally, I'm a little sad to hear that because I was actually so to let you behind the scenes a little bit, even last week, we even recorded on, what was it, Friday? Was it Friday afternoon? We recorded over lunch right before you left for Cedar Point for the weekend that, that it was going to be open. And then the next day we heard that that they had said that they were not going to construct it. So we never posted that story. So now we're talking about it again. Curious decision here, curious move to purchase the ride, but to say you have no plans to construct it. So there must be something going on behind the scenes here. Andy, what are your thoughts?
Well, to start with, I thought we finally had the end of the Where is Kanonen saga. Where in the world is Kanonen?
Yeah.
And we thought it ended. It is not ended. It is still going on.
No.
We don't even know where the ride's at this point. Danny, the only thing I can think of at this point is that they got an extreme deal on Kanonen, which I think is probably likely, that the ride was only $5 million to begin with to build. So Liseberg, it's a sizable investment, but for Liseberg, they're building something else. Hey, get rid of this, and sell it to somebody else. Maybe Lost Island got a really good deal on it, and they feel that they can sell it to someone else at a higher price. I don't know. Maybe
the owner of Lost Island Water Park just also happens to also own a storage facility.
An international shipping company.
Yeah, right.
Like, I have to imagine that to bring a ride over to America from Europe, there's probably a lot of paperwork, probably a lot of legal stuff you got to go through. Maybe the big chain parks don't want to go through all the hurdles and jump through all the hoops, and these owners feel that they found it at a good enough price that they will jump through these hoops, bring it over, and then find a buyer at a higher price. I that's the only thing I can think of, because unless you're collecting roller coaster track and you're going to start decorating your water park with roller coaster track, I don't know what else you plan to do with this.
Yes, Cedar Fair was the obvious guess because they had, around this time, had been over to Europe and purchased a bunch of the flat rides. Supposedly the flat rides that opened at Carowinds and the Troika that opened at Dorney were supposedly relocated from parks over in Europe. So it made sense that while they were over there, they just happened to find this roller coaster that they were tearing down and thought that somewhere down the road that'd be something they could do. It's not that large of a ride. It takes up a small amount of land. I could easily see it fitting into any number of parks that have even the slightest bit of land that would have some use for a small launch roller coaster. I think Worlds of Fun is actually the really good fit because they don't really have a launch coaster or a steel coaster, right? They don't have a launch coaster, right? I'm not. Dorney Park has Possessed, but I mean, certainly doesn't have anything quite like this. They just took out Stinger, which opens up a little enough of a plot of land, I would think, just based on the size of this ride. It doesn't take up that much land at all. So, I would certainly think that there were options. So I wonder why it took so long for a park to jump on this, and two, why nobody else before Lost Island Water Park in Waterloo, Iowa, decided to jump on this. I don't know if there's something going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. Maybe there's something wrong with the ride, but I don't know.
It's interesting because this ride's been on the market for a while. That this isn't, and I don't know, and it sounds from all the tweets and all the stories that this ride was purchased a while ago, that this isn't a recent thing. It's not like they just purchased it. On a timeline, I would have to imagine that this park is probably closer to selling it than they are to purchasing at this point.
I mean, we heard the rumors that it was a small Midwestern park without a roller coaster. We heard that quite some time ago. So
and even before
think
that,
the acquisition,
like the stories indicate that this was purchased maybe even upwards of a year ago, or later, or earlier than that. Like, I don't get the sense that this is a recent purchase in the last few months. That you
almost wonder if there was something behind the scenes going on, where if a larger park in the U.S. said, "Hey, we want this ride, but we don't want to ship it," and they kind of take Worlds of Fun, for example, here again, be like, "Hey, we don't want to do this." But they said to Lost Island or whatever, and this probably isn't what happened, but said, "Hey, do you guys want to buy this and pay to ship it over, and then we'll give you whatever it is, cost plus 25% or whatever." I don't know. I don't know why that, just so that they wouldn't have to do the paperwork. I have no idea.
Even I'm just thinking business perspective wise. I'm just thinking business. That even if none of that is true, these owners have to feel that there's a market, and they have to have had feelers out there to see, who out there might be willing to purchase this. Because I just don't, unless they got it for a hot dog and a hamburger, which in my mind would be less than $1 million, I don't see why anyone would take a risk on an intimate accelerator coaster. I even said on the show that we recorded before, a park like this, like Lost Island, just didn't make sense for this ride. Intimates are notorious for their upkeep, for how fast they run through wheels, for how expensive wheels are once they do run through them, for being really intricate with you need to have a maintenance staff to be able to do this. That's why the bigger parks who already have intimate accelerator coasters make sense. Six Flags doesn't even fit that bill. That they only have a couple with Ride of Steel and Superman. And
yeah, I mean, King Ka is really the only launch one they have, right?
So they have a few. Hershey Park has a couple of Intamins. Cedar Fair has a handful of Intamins with Dragster.
And Hershey Park doesn't even make sense because they have a ride that's basically this ride but bigger.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, Knott's has one. So Cedar Fair has the most Intamin launch coasters across the board. So I just naturally assume that maybe one of the smaller Cedar Fair parks would be getting it. So I guess the question is, where does Kanonen end up? And we are no closer. Does it end up in a field somewhere? Is it still in Europe in storage? Is this another...
Yeah, that's what we don't know. We don't know where the ride actually is now. Like, do they have it somewhere over here? Are they storing it somewhere? Or did they just purchase it and not ship it over, and they're just keeping it over there somewhere? These are all things we don't know, but what we do know, apparently, is that it will not be opening in 2019 as of right now.
At Lost Island.
At Lost Island.
We do know. We don't know if it will be opening up somewhere else. It could very well. And maybe all of this is coming out right now because it's very suspicious that after so long of not hearing anything, that all of a sudden we got word that it's at a Midwestern park. Then all of a sudden that Midwestern park said, oh, we have it, but we're not installing it. Has this ride been sold twice already? Is it already going to another park? Is this just...
It's like hearing that LeBron James has transferred his son's school into a school in Los Angeles a month before he signs with the Lakers. Like, I feel like that's what's going on right now.
Because everyone knows that we've been talking, that we particularly have been talking about Kanonen. Other people have been talking about Kanonen. We've been speculating Cedar Fair for the last 2 to 3 seasons already at this point. Is this a smokescreen that it is going to maybe Cedar Fair next summer, and they don't want to spill the beans all of it yet?
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, you wouldn't buy it to scrap it, right?
I would think that would be stupid.
Yeah, you wouldn't buy it to scrap it. So I can't imagine
you might. I don't know, but why wouldn't anyone else have done that? Why would an American water park buy it to scrap it?
Well, and if it was worth more to scrap than it was to buy, relocate, and construct, why wouldn't Leesburg have just done that?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
why even sell it?
Exactly. So, well, and this ride cost about $5.5 million in 2005, roughly. That's the equivalent. So, I mean, if you could pick this up for a couple million, it's cheaper than buying $5 million now. $5 to $6 million now gets you one of the small Gerstlauer Eurofighters. $10 million gets you like a monster size one. So, I mean, if you were to pick up this ride for even $2.5, $3 million, you're still going to be better off, even though it takes, it's going to cost more to maintain because of the launch and everything. You're still going to come out kind of ahead in that equation for a little bit, especially if it brings some nice returns. So I don't know. I'm left scratching. Usually you and I have some good ideas with stuff like this. I have no idea what the hell's going on with this. And neither does Raptor Dog. He's got no clue.
Yeah, he's got nothing either. I'm just hoping that at the end of the day that this doesn't turn into the coaster behind Darien Lake and sit somewhere and rust out and go to nothing, because
that's the fear, right? That it just ends up sitting somewhere.
And it does seem like that could be a very real possibility here. So who knows? But we will keep you updated on where in the world is Kanonen. It
might be close to you, so keep an eye out. Maybe you'll see some blue Intamin track making its way down the highway.
Maybe. So as always, I'm Andy Robarczyk from Chicago, Illinois.
Danny Miller, Binghamton, New York.
Right on, Red Warriors.
See you guys.